We play and call it work.
Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to this week's Sit and Talk, the show where you just ask us questions and we answer your questions. And if you have questions for next week, which will be Josh, because we rotate, you can leave them in the comments below. So let's just jump right into it. I'm going to be grabbing questions from YouTube, from our site, and then actually posting on Facebook as well. So I'm just going to go for about an hour, answer as many as I can. We'll see where we go. So starting with a question on YouTube. This is from Craig Sauce. Hey, how does one apply to come play on the show? I've always wanted to come on to play Bolt Action, Star Wars Legion, or Warhammer 40k, but never been sure if that's something I can ask to do or not. Well, we have the basic details at miniwargaming.com/challenge for how you can come in and play battle reports with us. You're always welcome to request whatever game you like, because we are doing our best now to start branching out into other games. We've got to do it slowly and carefully and methodically, because obviously 40k and Age of Sigmar are going to have the largest audiences, and so that is our bread and butter. But yeah, we've been starting to play other games like Bolt Action and Conflict 47, and This Is Not a Test, and Horus Heresy, and Lord of the Rings, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that we've been kind of hitting up right now. So yeah, and I know some of the guys are interested in the other ones too. So we basically, Wednesdays is our kind of variety day. It's a day where we just kind of put out whatever we feel like. There's no rhyme or reason to what we choose. It's just based on what we feel like playing, because I feel it's important to allow the guys and guests to kind of also add some variety in playing what they want. Because if you're stuck playing the same system all the time, no matter how good that system is, you do get bored. And so that's why you see Wednesday. It could be Horus Heresy, it could be Fantasy, it could be Bolt Action, it could be something else. So yeah, miniwargaming.com/challenge to find the details for coming on in. It gives you the FAQs and also the contact information. Jumping to our site, Klingon. Why is that so hard to say right now? Klingon Mage. Matthew, hope you are great and thanks for doing your sit and talk. Well, thank you, Klingon Mage. Klingon Mage. I've said that word a million times. Why is it so hard now? Live streaming is a cool addition to the toolset of MiniWarGaming. I think it's awesome to see you guys try new stuff. I was wondering how the business logic behind the live shows works out. It seems they would be more expensive than your normal battle reports, as they seem to usually use 3 team members. Can you talk about how they have been performing and keep up the awesome content? They're actually slightly cheaper, and the reason for that, well, they're not replacing anything first off, and so cost comparison is not always apt. For example, narrative campaigns cost way more money than our regular battle reports, but we still do them, right? It's because of the return that they give us, that they typically get more vault signups and keep people in the vault. So they're a good retention tool and a good sales tool as well. And so it's not always about exactly the cost. Like the sit and talks are probably the cheapest show that we make. It's one person for 1 hour and then a little bit of editing. And so why not just do nothing but sit and talks? So it's about coming up with a variety. Live streaming is about hitting up a new type of audience, but it also allows us to make another day of content because it doesn't replace the regular 40K. And so for example, we used to have Mondays were 40K and you'd have 2 battle reports. Now we moved that to Friday for more than one reason. And the live stream that we did the previous Wednesday goes out for free that Monday, edited to not have the pre and the post game shows. If you want to watch the full unedited one, then you have to be a Silver Vault member, which it goes in the vault that day on the Monday, or you can subscribe to the paid YouTube subscription at the Mini Wargamer level or higher, which is like $5 a month. And that lets you watch all of the replays without any edits. So you can see the whole pre-game discussion, the whole post-game discussion, everything, and the whole battle report, obviously, too. And so while it does take 3 members instead of 2, it creates a new day of content plus live streaming. So we get the live audience, which is typically a few hundred people. Actually, that's not true. It's a few hundred people at a time. It's actually a few thousand people. And so you get the people sign up for YouTube subscriptions and some super chats and things like that to help support that, which as that grows, we'll be able to add more live days because we can afford to hire more people. And then on top of that, it creates the following week a new day's worth of content. And so it's actually, in a way, almost cheaper. Not necessarily, because I know we only create 1 battle report in the end, but it adds a day of content plus live streaming for the cost of 1.5 battle reports. So yeah, it's totally worth it. And it's also fun. And so there's that too. There's a variety to it. And yeah, it's about experimenting with new things. And so it's not always going to be about the exact cost. We've actually recently increased our cost because we've been doing Brandon's been doing all that B-roll of the army footage, so you can see like the army intros and how they're all super polished. That's actually a lot of extra work. It's a lot of extra time for Brandon in the morning to grab the armies that are about to play a battle report, and then there's a lot of extra editing too. So it's several hours more work to do that. and so, and for the same amount of battle reports. So it's a combination of thought processes, but it doesn't mean that we're right. It's just us trying stuff. Smiling Kira, hi Matt, hoping you are having a great day. So far so good. 4 out of 5 of my kids are sick, but nothing serious, and so that kind of sucks. But I'm feeling good today. 1, I really love the Conquest of Blood Age of Sigmar narrative campaign. So can we know how successful it is for MiniWarGaming? It actually did really well. It makes me want to do more Age of Sigmar narrative campaigns. I've only got so much time to do campaigns though. Like we're just finishing up the This Is Not a Test campaign, which has been going out. I finished a second This Is Not a Test campaign with Josh, which is going to be going out for free. And then we're working on a combined Battlefleet Gothic and Warhammer 40k campaign. And then I'm planning the next one after that to be a Deathwatch campaign, because I've just been itching to do one of those. And I have a really cool idea for it. I think it's going to be awesome. And it'll be several players, and it'll be great. It'll be like old school Deathwatch. And that takes us all the way to like, that one will start filming probably in like January or February, maybe even March. And so even if right now I said in the next one will be Age of Sigmar, I wouldn't be filming it till April or May or maybe March at the earliest. But I really liked doing it. And it was, thankfully, the vault signups were really good. And so that encourages me to do more of them. And I know that kind of sucks that I have to go based on that, but it's a business, and so I have to. If something gets no views and no vault signups, it's like, well, as much as I loved doing it, I can't do it as often. I maybe have to do it less and just do it for fun every once in a while. So yeah, it did well, and I'm hoping to do more. I'm also getting Scary to do more narrative campaigns, and that way, because my goal for coming up, I'm not going to say 2022, it's just more like in the future, is to have a new narrative campaign every single month coming out. And so we'd have 12 of them coming out a year, and that would allow us to have more variety, and with that we can hit up more gaming systems, and just more armies that are being showcased as well. I just know it's the content that our Vault members stick around for the most. Battle reports, while they get the most views on YouTube, it's the narrative campaigns that seem to capture and retain people wanting to pay a subscription, which kind of makes sense, to be honest, because it's somewhat unique to MiniWarGaming. Not that anybody else couldn't make narrative campaigns, but most people don't, at least not as regularly as we do. And so it's, if you're just signing up for battle reports, I could see where you'd be like, well, I've got tons of places to watch battle reports. And I get that. That's fine. That's a decision that you have to make. The Vault was never intended to be a altruistic patron kind of thing where it's like, you like us, please support us. Although we appreciate people who do sign up for just that reason. We wanted to make it a product that is worth the money. So it's not like, I'm just being altruistic and wanting to help you out. Although, once again, we appreciate people who do sign up for that. And a lot of people do sign up for that reason, which we love. But we wanted to make sure, no, this is worth the $10 a month or $5 a month, depending on what level that you take. So that's where that kind of content comes in. Second question from Smiling Kira, can we have a similar campaign but with the Orc Warclans, where instead of the Undead and Mercenary, we have the Ironjaws and Cruel Boys competing to show which god is better, Gork or Mork? I'll add it to my list of ideas. Honestly, I have way more ideas than time to do narrative campaigns, so I never get to all my ideas. But people always throw ideas out, and every once in a while, one just kind of gets in my head and becomes something I'm going to do. So, and number 3, even the idea for doing narrative campaigns was kind of pushed by the audience years and years ago. And currently, is there any plan for 40k Orcs narrative campaign, Deathwatch, Gork and Mork, etc.? No plans right now, but honestly, I don't plan very far out. I've just told you my plans. This is not a test, is what we're doing now. I got the BFG/40k one, and then the plan after that is to do a Deathwatch one. Scari's working on a couple of ideas, and he's going to be starting to film one soon, hopefully. But that's as far as we plan for campaigns. I don't try to plan like a year out, because I go with what I'm excited for. And I have to plan a little further out now, because I hire artists to make the graphics. We get terrain made and models made. We put a bit more money into it. And so that requires a bit more time. Like I'm buying terrain right now for the Deathwatch campaign, which probably won't start filming until January, February, because I need to make sure it's all ready. And I'm having models made and all that kind of stuff too. So, and like the Battlefleet Gothic campaign, I made a Tyranid fleet for it like months ago. So. Florida Blades, hey Matthew, I was wondering what the reason for making the new extended live content releases only being available for Silver Vault members is. Previously, being a Bronze member got you access to all the content, but not discounts. Love your guys' works, and just wondering why it's the first set of videos that a higher Vault membership. That's actually not the first set. The Silver has always been about getting all our painting tutorials. And so then there's like over 1,000 painting tutorials in there, and we're starting to add more now. We have Maverick painting, actually creating both article and video tutorials that'll be available with the Silver Vault. So the Silver Vault has always been about adding more content as well. And so it's really just for that. If you look at it this way, the bronze membership and the YouTube subscription cost are about the same. And so you can buy this one and have that, or you can buy the bronze and have the vault stuff. And if you get silver, it just includes both of those. So it's just a tiered kind of thing. We're not putting less stuff in the bronze vault. We're not going to remove the bronze stuff and start throwing that into somewhere else. But we do plan on continue to do that kind of thing where we have more stuff for the higher levels as well. Rick Douglas, I think I know the answer to this fairly daft question, but do you think the rules could be customized to have a time travel campaign from fantasy through bolt action to 40K? Yeah, you could have a campaign rule set that would do that, and then you can just use the rules from each of those. But it's not really time travel, though. Fantasy is not in our past, and I guess 40K is technically in our future, canonically, right? But fantasy is not in our past. Fantasy is an alternate world, really. But yeah, there's nothing that would stop you from doing that. War Painting Geek. Hi, Matthew. We haven't seen much of the new Cruel Boys and the AOS Bat Reps. Are you guys still working on getting, assembling, and painting them, or are you guys not really interested in them as an army? It's just what people happen to be interested in when they're playing Age of Sigmar. I don't super push that always has to be the brand new stuff. Although, to be honest, like that would be, in a perfect world, exactly the right battle reports would be whatever the current meta is and the current new stuff. But that's not us. We're trying to do that for the live battle reports, make sure they're kind of on point. But other than that, it's like, no, we're just going to play what we want to play. And so when somebody has more interest in Cruel Boys, they'll play them. We're still getting more models painted up for it. We do have some, though. Also, I just finished watching The Conquest of Blood, Path to Glory, and loved it. It motivated me to create a story for my Iron Jaws. So thanks, Matt. Keep up the good work. A lot of people liked it, and I really enjoyed filming it with Luca. He did such a good job on his end. Oh, Miso, lots of questions here. So apologies, but really appreciate your answers. Hope all is well with your family. You and your family, both home and MiniWarGaming family. Yes, we're doing well. Yes, like I said, 4 out of 5 of my kids are sick, but nothing serious. What is going on with your D&D groups at the moment? Well, we're still working. We have 2 groups, and I DM one of them, and it's an epic campaign. We're at level 16. Level 17? No, 17, they have access to level 9 spells. They don't have that yet. So they're level 16, and it's pretty epic. We started with Tomb Annihilation. We went through the Ghost of Saltmarsh stuff as they traveled north. We did some custom campaigns. I've homebrewed some stuff. I've mixed in modules all together to create an overall arcing story. Basically, there's Atropos or Tropple, the world-born dead. It's in deep D&D lore, is returning, and so that's like the big bad guy at the very end of the whole campaign, maybe, unless there's some twist along the way. Sararak is still involved in all this as well, and so that campaign's there. The other campaign we were playing Horde of the Dragon Queen, but the Dungeon Master for that one has decided to take a little break from being the Dungeon Master and wants to be a player. So I'm actually going to take over that one as well. And so I'm going to Dungeon Master both groups, which normally would be too much for me. Maybe it will be. But we're going to be doing Curse of Strahd, which I've played through as a player. And so I'm very familiar with it, because after we played through it, I actually read through it a bunch because I thought it was really interesting. And so we're playing Curse of Strahd, but like the next generation, because a couple of the players in that group played Curse of Strahd when we did it before. And so I'm making it different. So it's going to like be... Because Curse of Strahd is kind of like this cycle thing that, you know, you can kill Strahd, but eventually he comes back anyways. Spoiler alert. Although it doesn't have to be that way. It's up to your DM how it works. And so it's going to be like the next generation. So that'll be starting in a couple weeks. So having a lot of fun. D&D, I love D&D so much. Have you ever considered running the Enemy Within campaign? It's an iconic Warhammer Fantasy RPG campaign from the late 1980s. I know when we're finished this epic campaign, which might take another year, I'm thinking, at least, because I'm in no rush to finish it. I just keep getting more ideas and adding more stuff, and everybody's having a lot of fun with it, so there's no reason to end it. We might go to level 20, maybe. It'd be kind of cool to say that we did that. We actually did a whole level 1 to level 20. We've been playing for a little more than 3 years in that campaign now. And it's rotated players a little bit, but we still have a core group there that have been there the whole time. Even one of the characters has been there the entire time. Just one of them, though. When that one's finished, I was talking to the group about maybe we'll try something different, maybe even just for a little while, just to experience stuff, whether it's Warhammer Fantasy or whether it's like Mech Warrior or whether it's like one of the 40K ones like Wrath and Glory, maybe the new Age of Sigmar one, maybe a post-apocalyptic one like Fallout. I don't know. We'll figure that out. So we'll probably start dabbling in other stuff just for fun. Yes. Can I help you, Luca?
I'm looking for terrain you have in here, I believe.
Oh, which one in particular? He's looking.
Fences.
Fences?
Fantasy fences.
Fantasy fences. I don't know if those are in here.
There you go.
I don't think they're in here.
Oh, man. No, I'm an extra fool.
You're an extra fool.
Oh,
No, no fantasy fences. I've got like the printable scenery fences for post-apocalyptic looking stuff, but that's actually over there.
sorry.
It's all right. Slam the door. It didn't close. There we go. I'm only going to do one more question, miso, and then I'm going to move on to somebody else's. Okay. You say you always like the narrative the best in the stories you do. However, you always seem very reluctant to put in character-based drama. Could you try experimenting with an Inquisitor revenge story? Maybe work in a love story into the vampire campaign, or perhaps a Death Watch squad with a lot of interpersonal rivalries? We need our drama, Matt. Take inspiration from soap operas. That's a good question, actually, and I've thought of that before. But what it comes down to is you have to understand the medium that you are telling your story in. For example, obviously, a person who writes a novel has different restrictions than somebody who's writing a screenplay for a movie, who also has restrictions, right? Like the screenplay for a movie has to be told within 2 to 3 hours, whereas a novel can be as small or as big as it needs to be, and it can go deep into tons of characters. And that's why adaptations from books to movies often fail, because the two mediums are so drastically different. TV shows, while they feel similar to like movies, are totally different kinds of mediums, because, and even TV shows before to TV shows now are very different, because TV shows before had to all fit within like a perfect, 44 minutes, or whatever it is, because they had to have commercial breaks, whereas now they can be as big as they want. So you get interesting things like the Sherlock Holmes one by BBC were like 90-minute episodes. Wow, somebody else coming in too. That's the second person. What are you looking for? Oh, your stuff.
You took my tape measure, so I need to take it back.
And you're taking my tape measure too.
Yeah, I don't know why you need a tape measure for a sit and talk. I need it for a battle report.
I might need to measure stuff.
Guests are more important.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
Take off, eh?
Oh.
You hoser?
Them's fighting words.
So the mediums are very different. And the same thing when it comes to telling a story like in a role-playing setting. That's very different. You have different constraints, but you also have different freedoms. And so what I've come to realize after doing like, I don't know, 60 narrative campaigns now, 70 narrative campaigns now, is there are certain things that a battle report narrative campaign are not able to do, and certain things that they do well. And so in the end, it's a game that involves dice, and so there's aspects of the control that you have to let go of. And if there's things that you want to control, usually you don't have it on the table, you have it as part of the story, but you don't want too much of that. Like you look at the Dark Angels one I did with Steve, there's going to be some spoilers here. There, I gave him like a choose your own adventure kind of thing, but not really. It's more like, because I was GMing it, I was able to, I didn't have to pre-write the whole thing. I was like, okay, so here's your goal, here's your first 3 missions, which one do you want to do? And he picks one, and then another one of those missions is no longer doable. He could still pick this one. I'm like, and now here's 3 missions, which one do you do? And as he picked his missions, I started to see a story. Like there's the setting and there's a story. Oh, I feel like I have to go into like I could spend an hour just talking about how to sculpt narrative campaigns, or at least how I do them. And there's so many like theories behind it that I've come up with, and some that are just, just theories that come into storytelling. Like a lot of, I feel like it's more like a role-playing setting, but not quite, because you don't have as much of the character-to-character stuff. And sometimes the coolest parts of the campaigns are not things even controlled. Like you think of some of your favorite characters from the previous narrative campaigns that I've done. The ones that I know that people have talked about a lot are like Theo from one of the Death Watch. Theo wasn't a main character. He wasn't a driving force in anything except being part of one of the squads. And yet somehow, because of the dice and the things that happen on the table, a story and personality emerged with him that then went on to make him really interesting. And then we had the whole campaign of #Theo for Dreadnought. And I saw so many people doing that. I thought, yeah, okay, if the audience wants it, I brought him back in another Death Watch campaign, or maybe in the same one, I can't remember, inside of a Dreadnought with a big old jetpack, because Theo was an assault marine. And people were really ticked off. spoiler alert, this is a long time ago, when he died. They thought it was unfair and killed him, and I loved it. I felt like George R. R. Martin from Game of Thrones, and people get mad at him for killing off their characters that they love so much. And I'm like, good, you're emotionally attached to that character, who kind of didn't have anything to do with the story that we were telling. He was just one of the Death Watch members. And so, and you want the battle reports to affect the story, and so but you also want to allow some of the story to emerge from the battle reports. And so it's just a different medium. So when you say all these things like a revenge story or a love story, like how is that going to be shown in a battle report that two people are falling in love? If you're going to have them on the table, well, they can die, and that would ruin your love story. And so you can't have that really emerge. And asking like Steve with his Death Watch guys to have interpersonal rivalries between them, like, well, that's up to the players to decide if they have a problem with each other. And so yeah, and it's just, that kind of stuff doesn't necessarily work, but sometimes it does, but I can't really control when it does or doesn't, because in the end we're rolling dice, and I want the dice to matter. I want the dice to help to tell the story. I don't want to have a pre-written scripted story. That's what movies and TV shows and books do, and those are fine. Obviously, we love those, right? We love pre-scripted stories. We still will allow ourselves to buy into the fact that who knows what's going to happen, even though we know that somebody's decided exactly what's going to happen. So, anyways, lots of thoughts there, though. I would love to just sit down and talk about narrative campaigns forever, because I actually really enjoy making them, and there's a lot of thought that I put into them too. Okay, Dennis McKean. Hi, Matthew. I've always been a big fan of the MiniWarGaming narrative campaigns, and some of my favorites were MiniWarGaming's collaborations with Black Library author Miles Drakes. Yeah, he's a really good author. It looked like there was going to be an epilogue of the Doom of Eolacanth narrative campaign, but it doesn't appear that an epilogue was posted. I presume that just fell by the wayside, but I would enjoy hearing of how the plot threads there would have resolved, probably with the actual Doom and all its courageous defenders as the planet became a Nurgly paradise. I actually don't know, to be honest. I don't remember. I remember the campaign, but I don't remember much about it because we've done so many since. So I apologize. I don't have a satisfying answer for you there, but I don't. TubeSteak 2000, you guys are the best. Thanks, TubeSteak 2000. Does anyone else think charging should be movement plus a d6? It's hard to comprehend these skilled superhumans could be in front of an enemy and trip when the charge rolls a double ones. Probably wouldn't happen. You're thinking too hard about why it is a certain way. It's all about game design. Sure, it could be movement plus d6. It could also just be double movement. And this is not a test. Charging is just a move plus a free attack. So you could actually move and then use your second action to move again into base contact and then make an attack for free because that was a charge. Every game has their own way of doing it, and you can sit here and debate the merits of whether it should be random lengths or not random lengths in literally a game where you're rolling dice to determine random outcomes. Because like they can make the charge, but then you roll a bunch of crappy 1s and 2s instead of the 3 pluses you need to hit. And then you could be like, well, maybe these guys are superhuman, so they should just always hit their target. It's just design choice, right? Like, should it be movement plus a d6? No, it should not be movement plus d6. Could it be movement plus d6? Absolutely. Absolutely could be movement plus d6. But that does fundamentally change the game a lot, because you have different kinds of movement. Like, Gene Stealers move 8. So they still charge 2d6. So you're saying they should be 8 plus d6. Well, that totally changes because they're actually allowed to advance and charge. And that's kind of crazy to then, yeah, it totally changes how the game would work. So, and they're not necessarily tripping when they roll double ones. You have to, if you really want to look at the abstract of why double ones would mean they fail to charge, there's a swirling battlefield of movement, right? It's not like it's not like, hey, we're playing, or we're actually having a real war, and these infantrymen move up and take a shot at us, and now we move up and take a shot at them while they're stationary. It's like, no, everything's moving. So you can look at the double one as being more like they hesitated, or maybe the enemy was moving too quickly, or an explosion happened nearby and took their attention away. Like, it could be any number of things. Glemma. Hi, Matt. Greetings from Germany. Hope you are all fine. Thank you. Love the Age of Sigmar fantasy content you're producing. I was never much into 40k and other sci-fi tabletops. Hey, to each their own. But I understand that most players come from this genre. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if sci-fi is more popular than fantasy. Maybe right now, but nobody could actually tell you that for sure. What it really steers it is kind of the popular media, right? Like, if you look back, I remember doing this research once and looking at the popular movies of each decade, and like before the 70s, the popular movies were all like historical things or religious things. Like you look at like Spartacus and like all those kind of old movies as well. So they were more historical things. There wasn't much fantasy in there at all. It wasn't until the 70s, really, when we got Star Wars, and then shortly after that we had some other stuff as well, that really started to bring sci-fi and fantasy into the limelight. And then it became, I think, because then we had like the like Star Trek, and we had, like, I know the Star Trek started in the 60s, but I mean like when everything became super popular. And so I don't know if I would say, it ebbs and flows, which one. Like then all of a sudden you have like vampires get popularized, right? Like you get Twilight, which wasn't the first vampire movie or book series by a long stretch, but it became very popular. And so all of a sudden everybody was doing vampires and werewolves and stuff. Once again, I know they weren't the first. I'm not trying to say that they deserve anything. I'm just saying that that happens, right? A popular thing comes out, makes tons of money, and then everybody else is like, I want to make money too. They made money doing this vampire love story. Now let's just do our variety on that. And now everybody has a vampire love story. And so that also popularized vampires. And then somebody does zombies, and zombies become super popular, and post-apocalyptic becomes super popular. So the genres kind of ebb and flow based on what popular media does and presents to us, because that's what kind of gives us a vision of what things could look like. And like Tolkien with all the fantasy stuff popularizing his view of elves and dwarves, and that has become kind of a staple for a lot of the different things that do elves and dwarves, including Warhammer Fantasy and Age of Sigmar. And so, whereas before that, elves were short and more like gnomes, and there's a whole history to that. So, yeah, anyways, I didn't even get to your question. Do you see from your statistics that the percentage of AOS fantasy fans compared to 40K differs from region to region? Some countries are outliers. That's a good question. Back in the day, 40K was popular in North America and Warhammer Fantasy was popular in Europe. That's what we saw. And then that slowly shifted, I think, but it's hard to know if fantasy became less popular, meaning like the genre fantasy, or if the Warhammer Fantasy game itself became less popular for whatever reason we can debate till we're blue in the face, whatever it happens to be. And Warhammer 40K gained its popularity, and that's what took over. All I know is that 40K became the predominant game and fantasy was dying out, and that's probably why they made their decision to reboot it to Age of Sigmar. Like it or not, that's their decision. I'm not going to try to debate the merits of it. And Age of Sigmar has proven to be very successful compared to what Warhammer Fantasy was, even though it has now a similar model count to what Warhammer Fantasy was. But maybe it's the aesthetics, maybe it's because they're on circular bases, maybe everybody loves double turns, who knows? Who knows what it is? But like for us right now, Age of Sigmar and 40K are neck and neck for their views, and then actually right now we're getting more people interested in Age of Sigmar battle reports in the Vault, but we don't know if, and it's not, and you might say, well, then maybe they're just less interested in 40K. It's like, no, the 40K interest has remained, and there's been more interest in Age of Sigmar. There has been a new edition that came out this summer too, so that affects it, but there was already more interest in it even before the new edition came out. So region to region, I don't have any statistics that would support one or the other, because there's no easy way for me to look at that. Like I could look at singular battle reports and then start to compile the data, but there's no need for me to do that. I don't have any, like, what would I do with that data? It's like, oh, look, in the UK, Age of Sigmar is more popular than 40K, and in the United States, 40K is more popular than Age of Sigmar. Like, what choice does that motivate? What I do look at is how many views they're getting and how many vault signups they're getting and the retention that they get in the vault, so how many views they get in the vault, and that kind of helps me to determine what kind of content to make. And because we're kind of a global company, I don't have to worry about regions. Essentially, we're global wherever you speak English. That's our audience. It doesn't matter if they're American, Canadian, Australian, German, French, English, Mexican, whatever you happen to be. If you can speak English and you like watching our battle reports, then you're one of our audience. GBC343, hi Matt, I'm glad to see you're healthy and super eminent. Okay, just had a question and it's fine if you don't feel like answering it. Looking back on your time with MiniWarGaming with the value of hindsight, is there anything you wish you did differently or perhaps not did at all? That's an interesting question, because it's a hard one to answer, because everything led me to where I am here, including the mistakes. And so if I hadn't done those mistakes, do I get to keep the memory of those mistakes and still have the knowledge of it? Because if you just go back and wipe out the mistakes, you also wipe out the things you learn from those mistakes, and then you'll just make them again. Or you'll make them. not again, because they won't have happened. So going back and looking at what would I do differently, because you might be able to say, well, you shut down the store eventually, so maybe it wasn't worth doing. It's like, no, the store is what kind of produced some of the assets and revenue that we had in order to, when we liquidated it, it all of a sudden gave us the money we needed to really kick the vault into high gear. And before then, getting people to pay for the vault was really hard because it was a new concept. Nobody paid for subscription services to watch content, and not in anything but maybe pornography, but that was about it. Everywhere else, it was unheard of. And yeah, so I can't think of what I would do differently. I can't think what I'd do differently. Like, would I not do the narrative campaigns that didn't do as well? But there's a lot of hidden factors in there. Like the narrative campaign that didn't get as many vault signups possibly could have had really good retention for vault members who watched it. It's like those hidden gems, right? You wouldn't pay to watch a certain movie, but because it happens to be on Netflix, you turn it on and you watch it. It turns out it's a movie you love, but you never would have bought it, right? And so it makes you a little happier to have your Netflix subscription. So it's complex. Dealing with customers and markets is a complex thing. So I can't think of anything, to be honest. No, I can't. I'm not saying that we haven't made any mistakes. We've made plenty. But I can't think of how I would have done it differently while still learning from those mistakes. All right. Carolus. Hi, Matthew. Greetings from Germany. Do you plan to play the new Warhammer Kill Team? Thank you for your great work. Yes, actually. We have Phil from Glacial Geek coming down. Glacial Geek. He's going to be filming with us for about a month. He'll be showing up next week, actually. And he loves Kill Team, so I'm assuming that we're going to do a little bit of Kill Team at least with them. So yeah, we do have plans. Prometeori. Hi, Matt. I hope you are having a great day. I'm thinking about playing solo 40K, just me playing against myself. How would you do it? Don't. I tried it once. It's not fun. You know any cool rule set to do that? Thanks for everything. I'm sure there are, but these games are meant to be played with more than one player. I know that sometimes you can't find players, and you're like, I just want to play it solo. But it's just not as fun. So I don't know a good way to do it and have fun. Mendig. Matthew, I'm sure you'll have enough questions about the upcoming Genestealer Cult Codex, so I thought I'd take a different route. I haven't had one yet. Have you seen there is a Black Library novel coming out about a Genestealer cult on a Forge World? It's called Day of Ascension, and it looks to be quite interesting. I have not seen that, no. Have a Google later if you're not already aware. It could have good background for a future campaign. Also, thank you for everything, and I hope 2022 is an even better year for MiniWarGaming. I feel like I always use Genestealer cults in narrative campaign because they're so good for narrative. Like their motivations are great. And they're awesome. And Dave was always doing narrative campaigns with Chaos, and so I always try to steer away from Chaos. He's doing less narrative campaigns now. He's doing other kinds of stuff. And so that means I can dip more into the Chaos stuff because it won't be overdone. Because Chaos cults are kind of a similar storyline to Genestealer cults, right? Like trying to stay hidden, they're trying to rise up, they're trying to summon their god, all that kind of stuff. So, but I'll take a look. Myelin, Matthew, I always really enjoyed the This Is Not a Test content. Most of the scenarios seem to involve a GM, so I'm curious if that's how the game plays outside your content. No, none of the scenarios require a GM. It's fun to add a GM, but not necessary whatsoever. In fact, you're going, like I said before, Josh and I did a separate This Is Not a Test campaign. We're actually already finished it. We did 8 episodes with a few different warbands. It's just a by-the-books campaign, so there's no story to it. It's just a campaign that you do. If it would be the same as if you did it with your friends. And no GM is necessary. There are AI rules for when there's creatures on the table. It tells you how to manage those. But being a narrative campaign with the Dave and Josh one, I wanted to GM it because then I can make a story out of it, and then I can do stuff that you normally couldn't do in these games. So you definitely do not need a GM, whatsoever. Columba Tiberius. I recently finished a rewatch of the Death Watch narrative campaign. I had a thought. Gorkamorka Season 4. Waterworld. I actually had that idea. Everyone on boats and jet skis while looking for buoys loaded with loots and gubbins. No, I actually had that idea once because there was the episode of Gorkamorka where they're all in the water, right? And that could be kind of fun. So Gorkamorka Waterworld. It'll be a hit just like the movie, right? All right, so that's all the ones from our site. So I'm going to now refer to some on Facebook and on our YouTube community. Okay. Daddy Pudding, when do you think the inevitable Chaos Cults versus Jesus Cult narrative campaign you guys definitely plan to do will be? I don't know. I'm like I'm telling you, I love the idea, and I just have more ideas than I have time. So I'm hoping I'll get there eventually. I'm gonna make sure to answer. Yeah, Jacob. How do you say that last name? Is it Koistra? Koistra? Because there's like Koistra. I'm gonna say Koistra, who is a new member of our YouTube paid subscription. So thank you, Jacob. Matthew, other than the employment and chat interaction of the new live streaming shows, how has the engagement and value proposition of the new content been looking? It looks promising. It's not like immediately making us bajillions of dollars, which I wouldn't expect it to right away. Like I talked about before, it has other benefits as well, like creating an additional day of content, giving us more interaction. It's not like paying for itself. Well, is it paying for itself yet? Let me do the math. No, it's definitely not paying for itself yet. So it's still costing us more than it's making us, as far as I can tell. It's impossible to know, like, Silver Vault members, how many are going to remain Silver Vault members, because now that's a thing. I doubt that's going to be like a huge part, because there's so many things that you get for being a Silver Vault member, and this is just a new addition, and we haven't super advertised it yet. So yeah, so far I think it's promising. So we'll see. Nalastair, very specific question here. I'm about to build some Sector Mechanicus terrain, the walkways and things. I really like how modular yours are while still supporting models. Are they magnetized, and if so, how or where? They're not magnetized. Oh no, that's not true. I don't know what anything's called. The long silos looking ones, those pieces are magnetized. So they go clunk, clunk, clunk onto each other. The walkways, however, they're not magnetized. Instead, we use those clips that it comes with, which I wish they would sell more of, because they eventually break when you like keep unclipping and clipping. We still like glue some together, so you like make a platform, but then you want it modular enough that you can do all the other stuff too. So don't leave them all totally separate. Create like a few platforms, and that way you have, it also sets your table up faster too. There's always a trade-off with modular. Things take longer to set up. It doesn't always look as good. Because when you build a piece of terrain and it's all glued together, you can really put in the detail to it. So yeah, the silos are magnetized, but nothing else is. Everything else is snap fit. ADZ 1989, no question here. Just wanted to say you're a cool dude and thanks for what you do. Well, thank you, ADZ 1989. That's a very kind thing to say. Druid, what updates do you expect on Tau to make it competitive? And if they make them, will you play them? Well, Colin's interested in covering them. I'm not sure if I'll be the one playing Tau. I'd be slightly interested in doing them. What updates do they need? I don't know what they can. To me, it's a simple question of them just making the numbers work, right? Like, I'll just give them enough for their points and their weapons upgraded, and their weapons brought into line with all the rest of the stuff that's been in 40K. Give them the abilities that bring them in line. That part's is simple enough. I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's simple enough to kind of grasp. What I want to know is, how do you make Tau unique? Because the game has been moving so much more into like just a numbers game, which is good and bad, that it's hard to know what makes them unique. Like, are they a shooting army? They've never been the shooting army, and yet they've been the shooting army. But with Ballistic Skill 4+, you could argue, and they're not the shooting army, but they've got access to, their basic troops have strength 5 guns. But see, like, that's not a big deal anymore in 40K, because everything is just more killy, and everything's more survivable too. And so being able to do that doesn't matter as much when you're only toughness 3, and you're just going to die in droves because somebody else now has a quadrillion shots coming your way, right? And so how do you make them unique besides their aesthetics? Obviously, their aesthetics are unique. They're whole anime kind of looking battle suits and all that kind of stuff, which is cool. I kind of like the aesthetics. You can like it or leave it or take it. It doesn't matter. Take it or leave it. That's the saying. They could maybe do some fun stuff with marker lights, make them more interesting than the way they currently are, because right now they're kind of meh. Maybe, you know what I wish they would do with it? But this is not, they're definitely not going to do this. I wish they would use the Tau as the way to create tons of new Xeno species. Like, you have the Kroot and the Vespid, right? Which are underutilized. Like, the Tau should be like the Federation of planets kind of thing. Call them communists, call them whatever you want to call them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you want them to be the good guys or the bad guys or just kind of neutral in all of this. It doesn't matter. they're supposed to basically they're supposed to have tons of these like subservient species, including humans, inside of their empire, and yet we don't see any of that. It's just Tau. Maybe you'll see some Kroot because maybe they're cheap in some of the editions. So I'd love to see the Tau's unique thing, like, you know, balance them and all that kind of stuff, but their unique thing will not so much be and like, you know, they're the shooting army, or they're the close combat army, or they're the psychic army, or that kind of, obviously they can't be the psychic army, and definitely not the close combat army, but just as examples. But their unique thing should be all these auxiliary stuff. So like a Kroot auxiliary, Vespid auxiliary, and then come up with a bunch of new ones. And flesh out the Kroot, flesh out the Vespids, make more of them. Like totally, they should be their catch-all. Like Games Workshop is like, you know what, I wish we could introduce, because there's got to be millions, at least millions of Xenos species still in the 40K galaxy. Minor Xenos species. None of them on their own which are of any threat to the Imperium or all that, but they could be a threat locally, right? And yet, somehow in this whole galaxy, we only ever hear about a handful of them. And we know they exist. Sure, humans are xenophobic, but humans don't have every planet. They have a galaxy-wide empire, but they don't own every single planet, either because they don't have the forces to, or because warp storms have kept them out from certain areas. But there's a large percentage of the galaxy that they are not on. And I would even say there's a large percentage of the galaxy that is unexplored. It feels like it's explored because you're like, here's this empire right here. But within that empire, that little circle I just did, there's 300,000 star systems. And not every single one of them is even explored. For all sorts of reasons, the main one being just because of the sheer numbers of everything. 40,000 years in the future is not enough time to really seriously explore everything and catalog it properly. Or maybe they were explored and then forgotten because of the bureaucracy of the whole thing. So there's just such a cool factor there that I think that Games Workshop could really capitalize on, but it would require them to basically be coming out with new lines of like basically aliens. Not aliens like aliens from Aliens versus Predators, but like Kroot and Vespid and something else and something else. So if I were to have control over what would happen to the Tau in the future, it would be, yeah, get their Tau book good, give them some cool Crusade rules that has to do with them expanding, you know, the whole spheres of expansion and all that kind of stuff. And then focus supplement after supplement after supplement of like should be a Kroot supplement, which like fleshes out the Kroot, a Vespid supplement, which fleshes out the Vespids. Because there's a picture in the Kill Team book of a Kroot part, like just a little Kroot village or something, and this is so cool. I want more of that. And then there should be something else, something else, something else, all these different Xeno species. There should be a human supplement and models that don't just look like Cadians, like they're humans that are just in some sort of weird armor. Not like power armor, but just like, you know, there's a different culture. There's so many different cultures too. And I think that would make the Tau stupidly interesting. I don't care about the meta, by the way. I couldn't care less about how well they play in GT or whatever. To me, that's going to ebb and flow, whatever. You want something to sell. It's not just about how well it works in tournaments. It's got to be how cool it looks, how cool the background is, and how interesting the rules are. You need to balance them as well, because otherwise they get frustrating to play or to play against. You don't want to make them too powerful or too weak. You want them just in there so that people, when they play against them, know they can beat them, but they also know they can be beaten by them. But that's, to me, what is lacking in 40K right now, and that the Tau could serve as the way to do it, because Imperium obviously is too xenophobic, Eldar are too xenophobic, Orcs are too xenophobic. Not that they're xenophobic, they just don't care, they just kill everybody. Necrons kill everybody. Everybody just kills everybody, right? Everybody just cares about themselves. There's some bro-fisting every once in a while, and you move on. But I think yeah, I think I belabored the point enough. But Games Workshop, if you're hearing this, you come out with new alien supplements for Tau, and boy, will you have me. And I will make narrative campaigns out of the wazoo about that, because I think it would be the most interesting thing to kind of really flesh out the 40K galaxy as well. Not that it's not already fleshed out a lot, but there's just so much potential to make it feel. It would make it feel even fuller, more full of life. So that's what I would do. Vulcan. Afternoon from the UK, Matthew. Any chance you guys could do another Warzone Apothis style campaign? That was such a class campaign. Maybe eventually. The next campaign I'm doing, like I said, is the Battlefleet Gothic 40K one. It's just Steve versus Luca, but there will be some NPCs in there as well. It's going to be like it's going to be in a sector, and it's going to have a bunch of planets, and they're going to move their fleets around and conquer and that kind of stuff. So it won't be like Warzone Apothis that way. It'll be its own thing. So I'm just trying out new things and see what sticks, see what people like. Todd Bolkar, why do you think Games Workshop goes the extra mile? It seems to update Balance 40K when Age of Sigmar seems to go months without any sort of meaningful update. I know 40K is the bigger brand, but it seems Games Workshop isn't doing AOS any favors in terms of generating interest. Oh, Age of Sigmar is doing just fine. It's doing quite well for them. So obviously we all have our points of view of what we think they should and should not do. I couldn't care less that they actually balance 40K or balance Age of Sigmar. I think they need to do a basic job of it, but realize that the game is too complex to actually fully balance. And trying to react I don't think it's a good idea every quarter to send out a balance update. I think that's a bad idea. From my point of view, it's a bad idea. Because that means they're just reacting to what happens at tournaments. Like take this last one, for example. Some cool stuff in there, but all of a sudden saying you can only have so many flyers. Well, there's all sorts of lists that had lots of flyers that weren't overpowered, and now they can't have all their flyers. And that kind of sucks for the people who just bought a bunch of flyers. And so I feel like it's too much overreacting. It's like if there's something wrong with your core system and you're seeing that, then address that in the next edition. And in the meantime, adjust points. If flyers are too good, come out with a points update. You've got your once a year thing. It's just too complex to knee-jerk react balance every 3 months. This isn't a computer game where people aren't buying. Like StarCraft, if they throw out balances every couple months just because it's like, oh, too many people are using battle cruisers, nerf battle cruisers, nobody's using carriers, buff carriers. Even though they're not necessarily imbalanced, it's just what people are using, so it gives people a variety of, but it doesn't cost people anything. They don't have to now go out and put their battle cruisers on the shelf and paint up a bunch of carriers. So there is an inherent danger in constantly trying to balance things that somebody who's spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of painting time, their army all of a sudden becomes irrelevant for a while, could be a long while. And you might think, well, then regular balance updates will help with that. It's like, not necessarily, because it doesn't address everything. It just addresses the super obvious stuff that might not even be what should be addressed. You can't have, this isn't a computer game where you can collect data properly. It's from a small set of data. And I don't care how many tournaments they look at, that's still a small set. Because you could add up all the tournaments in the world and they could get perfect data from all those tournaments, and that's still not going to be correct because that's meta list. That's people playing it a very specific way for GT and then all of a sudden changing it. Now I know that you can just ignore all of those, like the restrictions and things, and when you're playing narrative and open play, and that kind of fixes it too. So maybe it is okay that they do all these updates. I don't know. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I particularly enjoy playing the GT, the Grand Tournament stuff. I prefer open war and narrative play with Crusade, or even Maelstrom match play is fun too. Something where I don't know ahead of time exactly what I'm going to do in the game. And I feel like GT just basically tells you build your list and plan ahead exactly how you're going to play regardless of what your opponent does, which I know is not totally accurate. You still have to react to what they do. But in the end, you're still kind of playing the same game over and over again. And I don't like that. I don't enjoy that. I even like open wars like, hey, I brought a shooting list. You can't see more than 12 inches away. It's like, well, crap. I'd rather that, to be honest, because it just creates an interesting variety of what you do. And it's just more interesting is what I find. I think in the imbalance can in some ways create more interest in the game than perfectly balanced. I think that's kind of important to have in a game. Like we're playing This Is Not a Test, and there's a few things in there where I'm like, oh, this is totally overpowered. But once we discovered that, we're like, well, we're playing a narrative campaign here, so just don't do that. And the rule set maybe should address that, but it can't catch all those things perfectly. And so it doesn't need to kind of, I don't know. There's no perfect answer here, by the way. I don't even know what the answer should be. All I know is I don't care if they put out updates every quarter. And at the same time, I'm like, I don't think it's a good idea either, but whatever. Gray Fox 251, what are your thoughts now that Tyranids have won Octarius, and what implications do you think it will lead to in terms of lore? Man, you're asking the wrong person. I think I pointed out in that last one. If you're not familiar with what my personal brand is what I just said. Couldn't care less about what is the current meta. I like playing narrative, and I realized what the meta does. It comes down and affects all of that. But they won Octarius. That's cool. With one probably specific list, with one very specific way to play them. Tyranids have a huge variety of play styles. And so if I have to play this one way, because I remember before they were losing all the time and then they won one tournament by just bringing like a couple hundred gaunts and just swarming the table. And it's like, that's cool. I played that in one game. I'm like, yep, that won. Never want to do that again. I want to go back to playing some cool thematic lists, right? And so I find I get pigeonholed too easily with the GT stuff. So. Also, thoughts of Gene Sitter cults on Terra. Makes sense. That's why they're here, right? They're getting, the Tyranids are getting drawn in by the Astronomicon, so it makes sense to change their cults and make it a Terra. Terra is not an indomitable fortress. It's too big to be able to watch every tiny thing that arrives, right? Like think about the number of ships that arrive at Terra every day, bringing in supplies. Because as far as I know, Terra doesn't have any agriculture or any food production, maybe some food recycling. And so there'd have to be constant ships coming in. So there's just a million ways for gene stealers to show up on Terra. There's no way you could be aware of them all. And finally, are you getting excited to play the new Gene Stealer Cult Codex when it comes out? Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially the Crusade rules. Alex M, hello. First question, what other hobbies do you enjoy besides wargaming? Mainly, well, I play some video games, and that's obviously a hobby, but mainly I love Dungeons & Dragons. Role-playing would be more accurate. We're doing Dungeons & Dragons right now, and I love it, but I love role-playing in general. So that's that. I don't actually do miniature wargaming out of work time, partly because I don't have time to with 5 kids, and partly because I get everything I need to for this hobby from here. I don't enjoy painting, and so I don't have to find time to paint. And so I get to play, I get to do narrative campaigns, I get to have a variety of stuff while I'm here at work. And so, what I don't get to do at work is role-playing games, which I wish that we could do more of, but they haven't proven to be very successful in the past, so I can't really have, it's not a good reason and not a good idea to do those regularly here. Second question, are you excited for the new Spider-Man film? Sure. Thanks and all the best from the sunny UK. Sunny UK. So that's an oxymoron right there, right? Phil Hitchings, when the Horus Heresy box set is released, will you be able to do a full How to Play series? I do plan, like today, meaning Thursday, you'll see this on Saturday, we put out a How to Play This Is Not a Test. I kind of want to do more of those. I want to cover like every game I can think of, including games that we don't cover, because it's kind of fun to do that. And it's a way for us to explore other games as well. So maybe, we'll see. Okay, I got some questions here. Are you planning to do this type of campaign or this type of campaign? I've already talked about what kind of plans we have for that. Rick Scandon, are there any new shows you are looking forward to watching? Do you watch a lot of shows, and if so, how? What platform? We've got Netflix, we got Disney Plus, we got Amazon Prime. Those are there's not as many things available in Canada as the States. I'm not sure what's available over in Europe. Currently, I'm really, really enjoying the Foundation TV series. I've read the books, Isaac Asimov's books. The TV series is almost nothing like the books, which I kind of like, because when I saw that they're going to come out with a series, I'm like, how do you do Foundation? It covers so much time. And how do you do that in a TV show? But they found a way, and I love it. I love the actors they chose. I love the story they decided to go with. It's more like they took the idea of Foundation, the basic idea of psychohistory, and I'm not going to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything, and Harry Seldon and his plan, and they put that idea in the movie, or in the TV show, but then they kind of made it their own, and I love it. I have loved every moment of it. It is fantastic. That's the main show I'm watching right now that I've been looking forward to. But do I watch a lot of shows? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to compare myself to the average consumer of media. Like I play video games. I've been playing through Skyrim recently again. I went through Fallout recently again. I replay games a lot because I find that I have a hard time getting into new games. Maybe because I'm getting old, or because I don't have time to put because you have to invest in a new book or usually TV shows and games as well. You got to put enough hours into it so that you're familiar enough with it that you know if you like it or not. So I've been having a hard time with that. So yeah. Okay, let's see. I got time for a few more questions. Let's jump over to Facebook. Let's refresh. I think we have like 70 or 80 questions here. 65. Okay, I'm not getting through all of those, but that's okay. I like to have more questions than time. Oh, did I jump? Okay, good. No. All right. Nico Probst. Which miniature games would you like to play and or cover on MiniWarGaming, but for whatever reasons never managed to do? Okay, wish list of games that I'd love to play. Frosthaven. Frosthaven? Hold on. Oh, goodness. Frostgrave. Yeah, Frostgrave. I would call it Frosthaven. I think it was Gloomhaven. Frostgrave looks interesting. More Conflict 47. You'll see a few of those come out. I filmed a few games with Gaz while he was here from Warlord Games. I'd like to cover that more. What games? I've always suppressed this because it just depresses me that I can't. I wish I could do more role-playing games. Any of them. Age of Sigmar, Warhammer 40k, Dungeons and Dragons. I don't care. Give me them all. I'll do them all. I'd like to try out the Fallout miniature games. Now that we've played This Is Not a Test, which is super fun. I want to see how the Fallout system compares. I'm not as interested in the Star Wars ones personally. This is me. This is all you asking me personally, by the way. This is not company stuff. Oh, geez. Oh, geez, man. What other ones? That's the ones I can think of off the top of my head, because honestly, I don't look at too many other games, because then I just get sad that I can't play all of the games. Because how I approach this hobby is I like variety. So no matter how perfect a game is, I'll get bored of it, and I want to play something else. I think that's normal, right? Is that normal? I know some people can play the same army over and over and over again forever, and I'm just like, I don't get that. I get bored of the same army after a few games. I'll come back to it, but I like to, switch it up. So yeah, those are some things that cover. It's a big question. We're trying to venture out to playing more games and expanding outside of just Games Workshop stuff. Not because we don't like Games Workshop, but because we want to play other games. Okay. Eric Just Christensen. Question, what is your opinion on Raging Heroes Arcadian Elves miniatures? I'm going to quickly look that up. Oh, you mean the clearly Eldar miniatures? I'm just looking at pictures of them right now. They seem interesting, but they don't seem different enough from regular Eldar stuff. Like, if you're going to make proxy models, you got to make them look like what's your unique take on it, right? Not just like, here's what they've done, but repose. So that's my quick first impressions. No offense to Raging Heroes. Like, they look fantastic. Like, they look really good, actually. And now that I see some of that terrain in the background, I think I'm going to be taking a look closer to see if they sell that terrain, because I'd be interested in the terrain. There you go. Here's my first reaction. Also, do you think Games Workshop will eventually be forced to sell the STL files of their miniatures? Forced? No. But they'll want to. And I don't mean the STL of all their stuff, because first off, they don't have STLs of all their stuff. Their stuff is designed for plastic injection molding, right? Which is different than 3D printing. And while they do have 3D models, they're designed not for 3D printing, but to be broken up into pieces and put on sprues. But I think what they'll eventually catch on to is selling STLs of certain aspects. Like, there can be models that are just available to by STL, and then maybe they do them as well. But I think what would be really cool is if they did STLs of like bits. Like, here's the STL for force swords, or for shoulder pads, or for this, and they're the official ones, or for terrain, or for stuff. I think it could be a whole new branch of what they do. I don't think STLs are going to replace what the miniatures are. I think that it's a kind of technology that has its limitations, in the sense that there's certain types of things that a printer can do, but like this is a mass production that a factory can do with the plastic injection molding. Like, have you ever seen one of those machines at work? I can't imagine how 3D printing will ever be that fast. It's just stupid fast. How fast they go shooting out the sprues. It's just stupid fast. And so you could just offer up the STL of that sprue, and then the 3D printer prints the sprue, and then you clip everything off the sprue. But that's not playing to its strength, right? With 3D printing, you have a different type of way that you build the model. And so, especially if it's like resin, where it's going to be working backwards, or if it's the whole, the one that I can't remember what it's called. But so I think they should get into selling STLs of bits, terrain, maybe even exclusive models, whatever it happens to be. So yes, forced? No, nobody's forced to do it. And I don't think they'd go out of business if they never did STLs. I don't think the future of miniatures is STLs. I think that in the future of miniatures, there are lots of STLs, lots of 3D printing, yes. But I don't think it'll ever replace it, because, like, look at printers, like regular printers that you have at your house that print paper stuff, right? Did they replace all the companies that do no, it hasn't replaced all the companies. It's changed, it's disrupted how the market works, and it's allowed people to do stuff from home that they couldn't do from home before. But there's still only so much that those printers can do, unless you're willing to spend lots of money on those printers, which most people don't want to. Like, you're saying, well, they're so cheap now, they're only a few $100. It's like, yes, sure, but the good ones are still expensive. But let's say the good ones become cheap eventually, but they're still, you have to figure out how to use them. And no matter how stupid easy they get, like, people have to take the time to learn how to use them. And no matter how fast they can print, there's still going to be a limitation on what you can do with them. And so the technology is going to be great. I think they're going to be more commonplace. More people will have them in their homes, but there will still be certain things that you just will be done better not by 3D printing. Or at least it'll need 3D printers at the industrial scale. That's something that you just won't have at home. One more question. Joe Zach. All right, Joe, I'll answer one of your questions. Have any of your kids started playing, and have you had to disown them for playing Tau? I don't care if they play Tau. Mike, my oldest, he's almost 12. He would love to play 40K and Age of Sigmar. I just haven't had the time to, bring him in and do this kind of stuff. We play D&D together, and we play board games together, and we play video games together. So he'll definitely want to get into wargaming as he gets older. He's getting to the age now where he could. Like, I know you could get into it earlier than 12, but I mean, like, really get into it. So yeah, no, they're all interested in it, though. They all love all this type of nerd hobby and stuff in their own way, each of them in their own way. So yeah. Anyways, I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for all of your questions. Thank you for supporting MiniWarGaming. We're here because of viewers like you and Vault members like you. So stay tuned for more stuff from us. If you want to leave questions for Josh, make sure you just leave them in the comments below. Whether you're on our site or on YouTube, it doesn't matter. Just leave them there. Thanks so much for watching. Happy wargaming.